So BC has done a great job so far in the transfer portal. They've landed 8 players, but this next player I'm going to talk about today could be a game changer. I'll explain why on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all for listening to today's episode. It is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So BC so far has been doing pretty well in the transfer portal. They've lost 12 guys, and as I've said, you could argue most of them are not they're more like depth players at this point, guys that you don't expect to play big roles. And they brought in 8, and we'll talk in a second segment about those 8 players. But for the most part, they've addressed things in 2 different areas. They've addressed the secondary and they've addressed a lot of the offensive areas. And there's still a big need for this team. And if you listen to yesterday's episode and go back and listen if you haven't, hint, hint, there is a position that struggled this year, and that was the defensive line. Pass rushing has been an issue for Boston College this year, as they were one of the worst teams, Mitch said, in terms of getting pressure rates. They were 129th in terms of sacks. They were way down there. And it was a disappointing year, especially for a guy like Donovan Azaraku, who was one of the best pass rushers in the ACC in 2022. You expected him to at least be able to do some of that. He did not. So what has BC done so far? They haven't done anything in the transfer portal. They brought in Jason Flint, a true freshman, but I don't expect him to play for a while. So they need to go out there and they need to get I've been saying they've been going after interior defensive linemen, but on Tuesday, I would say Tuesday was the time I found out about it, and I posted it on Eagle Insider, that BC offered an edge rusher from Marshall. His name is Elijah Alston, and this is a big one. This is a kid who is 6'2". He's a redshirt junior. He had 6 sacks last year. 256 pounds. He played, all the games this year. He played all the games last year. He had 22 tackles last year, 7 quarterback hurries, and a fumble recovery. He had an interception return for a touchdown this year. But whatever it was, this is a guy that would fit a huge hole on this roster. You could add him in. You basically have 4 really strong, potentially strong defensive linemen that you could play at the edge. Azaraku, Neto Ekpala, Edwin Kalengi, and Alston. Now, when you bring in a guy like this, you start to get a little bit worried, right? What can he do? What is this guy going to bring to your roster? Can he translate to ACC play? And folks, if you're on YouTube, I'm going to present a little something for you so you can see why I'm like, this guy could do more than what you might expect. Here. This is his Pro Football Focus grades. Now, look at the bottom here. And I can't illustrate it. I wish I could. Maybe I can. Maybe you can see this. His grade last year for this past season was a 91. That is awesome. That's higher than I think everyone on BC's team. Yes, again, when I talk with Mitch about this kind of stuff, he says, all right, AJ, slow down. He plays for Marshall. It's a G5 school. Fine. But there's some numbers in here that I thought were very interesting. And there's another thing I want to talk about as well. First of all, he scored an 82.5 against Virginia Tech. That, again, is excellent, especially when you're playing for Marshall. He scored a 76.4 against NC State, 2 ACC opponents. So he's not just doing it against, Sun Belt or whatever conference. I'm not even sure. I lose track. It's Conference USA, Sun Belt, whatever conference Marshall is in. He's doing it against ACC opponents too. And you can look at the statistics and you see he had 5 sacks. Sorry. He had 9 quarterback hits. His pass rush was a 90.5. This sounds like a perfect match. And you know what? If it doesn't work, you tried, you got a good guy. And I don't think this is just a shot in the dark kind of player either, because when you're looking at the teams that are interested in him, it gives you a piece of an idea of what other coaches think, and coaches that are very in high regard. First of all, right now, I believe he just finished an official visit earlier this week to Texas A&M. Mike Elko, very good defensive coach, right? He had him in. He's also scheduled, and I don't know the date. I think it might be tomorrow, and it might be today. He's supposed to visit Georgia, the University of Georgia. So you have 2 elite SEC schools trying to vie for him. Now, you hear that, and your first thought as a BC fan is, well, he's never coming here. It's interesting thoughts here, though, because there is a way that I feel like he could end up at Boston College. First of all, Texas A&M, they have their program, right? And they're a big program. The biggest. What are they? I think they're the biggest stadium in the country, right? But why do a lot of players go to Texas A&M? I wish I could put up a picture of Uncle Scrooge with a swimming in the pool of money. They're an oil school. They can pay anyone. So if he's looking just for a bag of money, that's where he's going to end up. But I caution this because Texas A&M, as I recorded this, landed a transfer from Purdue earlier today at edge, same position that Alston plays. So he may not be their number one guy. So maybe Boston College can go around that, right? So that's one thing. Georgia, yes, you play for Georgia, you're going to be playing for one of the top 3 best programs in the country, one that's won 2 national championships in the last couple of years. Elite elite everything. They were just elite. Everything's elite, including everyone they bring in. So they may not be able to offer a lot to him in terms of playing time. Like, yeah, you can be a senior that comes in, but we probably have about 15 4 and 5-star recruits that are going to be battling you, so you might not have a chance. While Boston College, yes, they're the little brother in this. They can say, you earn it, you're going to play. You're going to play, and there's not a lot. There's a good chance we're going to get you out there, and we'll show you how we'll get you out there. So I have faith that BC could still land this kid. Now, there's one factor that I'm laughing at because we live in Boston that could impact this, and I haven't talked to anyone at BC about how it could impact this weekend. But there's a snowstorm coming in Saturday night into Sunday, so that's right in the middle of visitor weekend. Now he's from, where is he from? I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. I don't know where Elijah Alston is originally from. I think it's from Virginia. Let me see. He is from Virginia, right? So he's used to snow, so it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes I hear about these official visits, and you got kids coming from like Georgia and Florida or whatever, and they're projecting like 8 to 10 inches of snow, and you're like, this kid's not gonna want to come here. That could impact things. Like, and for him, it may be just more traveling. Like, can he get in and out? That might be a problem. But I had talked to the staff, and last I had heard, he's coming. So this is something that could be happening this weekend. Now, we'll have full analysis. If he does commit, believe me, on Monday, I will be all over this. So in our next segment, I want to look at Jeff Hafley's philosophy. What's going on so far? And has he been hitting, has he been doing something that will help BC as they get ready for a difficult 2024 season? We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Now, FanDuel is your number one place to go with the NFL regular season wrapping up, but there's still a chance to get in the action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy, and there's so many ways to bet, like same game parlays. You can find the bets easily. Now, this weekend, it's the end of suffering for me as a New England Patriots fan, as the Patriots play the Jets. And I think this weekend's going to make me suffer even more, as I'm hoping the Patriots get a top 3 draft pick so they can find, either Marvin Harrison or Drake May or Caleb Williams. But I got a feeling they're going to beat the Jets, and they're going to ruin this, and they're going to get like the 5th pick and end up with like a tackle or something like that, which is fine, but it's not going to help this team. Now, if I really believe that, I could go on to FanDuel. I'll make my bet on the money line and feel good about that, right? Maybe you feel like the Patriots don't have enough. You can go there too. So you can go there. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, and it's the easiest way to find those parlays. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NFL. Locked On BC, AJ Black. The transfer portal is a fun time for roster change. Like it breathes new life into every program as they find these new players, and you're feeling like, we're starting to feel good about where our school is heading, and we're feeling good about what's going on with what they're bringing in. And this is the time where BC is doing it, though. I'm going to pull up the transfer portal class, which right now stands at 8. They have 8 players. They have last I checked, they were numbered 10 in transfer portal class on Eagle Insider on 247, excuse me. They have the ability to continue to build on this, though, because the staff has been really quiet. All the news that has come out, like, you guys know me. If I know something, I'm going to tell you about it as long as I can. Sometimes I can't. But right now, the staff won't even tell me anything. They are Fort Knox. They don't want any leaks coming out because they want to see if they can get the next Jerron Brentley, the next Jaden McGowan. Jaden McGowan was like a big-time secret. Couldn't say anything about that one. They're very, very tight-lipped about what's going on. But I think they have a good reason for it because they're doing a lot of good work out there right now. Look at what BC has done so far on the offensive side of the ball. You lost a couple players, 4 big ones if you want to also consider Pat Garwo. You lost Kyle Hergel, Christian Mahogany, Ryan O'Keefe, and Pat Garwo. George Takis kind of counts, but I'm not going to count him because I don't think he had a great season. And that's not a knock on him. He just 6 drops is 6 drops in the limited amount of time he played. But you look at what BC has done to put weapons around Thomas Castellanos. Last year, you had some good players. When Ryan O'Keefe went down, it really impacted what that passing game could do. He really was able to help find some of that intermediate stuff that really helped out Castellanos in games like Georgia Tech and Florida State and Louisville, where he was able to just hit him. But then once he went out, it felt like they were missing something. Hafley went out. They brought in a 6'5" wide receiver, Jerron Bradley, who as I said, I talked to someone at 247. They think he's an NFL level wide receiver. He was misplaced in Texas Tech. And they think if he fits in well here, he could be a big deal. You brought in Jaden McGowan, who doesn't have the pedigree that Ryan O'Keefe has. He's not a guy that has 150 catches, but I've heard things about his speed that make you think that he could do what O'Keefe did and bring that back. That is exactly what you need, and Hafley killed it. You needed a guy like that because you didn't have that on your roster. Jaden Skeet's great, but he's not that kind of player. He's a guy that you put on the perimeter and have him go out there and get some balls. You don't have that with Dino Tomlin. You don't have that with Joseph Griffin. Lewis Bond is kind of that, but he does some other things. And Mitch could tell you more about that. McGowan is the kind of guy that can do things with his feet, like get him the ball in space. He's going to run with it. That's what O'Keefe did. That's what Zay Flowers did. That's what they needed, and they got a really good transfer there. Then they added in a tight end. You got Kamari Morales, who may not be the flashiest name, but he's veteran. He's a pass catcher. He leads UNC in career touchdowns by a tight end. He's done it. So he's a guy that can do that. And you pair him with Jeremiah Franklin, you got another guy out there. Then Hafley flips the entire running back room with two new removing four guys. You lose Garwo, who it just was time for him to try to find a new spot. It just wasn't working. And then three undersized running backs. Oh, sorry, Andre Hines, and then two undersized running backs in Cam Barfield and Xavier Coleman. Andre Hines was never going to play here. He ended up at Wagner. So for folks that were like, man, you should have given him a chance. He's playing at Wagner. It's not a knock on him. It just tells you where other coaches thought he would be a better fit. He's a place like that, right? You bring in Trayshawn Ward, who has performed every stop he's been at between Kansas State and Florida State. You now have top three of Robichaux, Ward, and Alex Broom. And you all of a sudden have three very experienced running backs who can do very different things, because Ward is not a bowling ball like Robichaux, but he's not a scat back like Alex Broom. He's bigger. He can do some things. He's a guy that you can rely on and can take those hits and also break tackles and do things like that. But you also brought in Jordan McDonald, who is another bowling ball. So you have now a bigger running back room that can do more in your physical running game. So those places they've hit. Then you look at the secondary, a position up until the bowl game. I mean, the bowl game opened my eyes to some players. KP Price, he needs to get out there faster. And Max Tucker, I'm not going to say a thing about him until I see him struggle again, because I thought he had an amazing game against SMU. But regardless about that, BC was able to go out and land three transfers, a safety and two cornerbacks. They brought in Cam Martinez and Ryan Turner from Ohio State. Martinez is the safety. Ryan Turner, Mitch has projected to be the nickel corner. And they brought in Bruce Brown of the Indiana Pacers, a younger brother who played for Georgia State and projects to be a perimeter defensive back and a guy who could play every down. This is a guy that I've read and heard could be your number one guy. One of the staff members, a high-ranking staff member at BC, said this is the steal of the transfer portal class for them. That's how highly they think of Bryce Brown. So you have that. And as I said, they're not done yet. There are clearly areas they still need to hit. They still need to get defensive linemen. They still need to go after interior offensive linemen. Who those names are going to be, I'm going to have to keep digging and digging and digging, because my sources are silent about it. It's all based on players putting stuff on social media. I mean, I'll tell you the real deal, right? First week, I got all the names. They were able to tell me. Then they kind of got quiet about it. Now, Jordan McDonald, I only found out about him being on campus because he was a UCF player, was because I follow Thomas Castellanos on Instagram. And Thomas Castellanos put up a story picture of him out to dinner and had him tagged on it. And I was like, that's interesting, because they were in Boston. That kind of stuff. You have to dig a little bit and follow some breadcrumbs. If there's breadcrumbs, I'll be all over it. And I will, believe me, if I find stuff out, I will get to the bottom of it. I will ask staff, I will get to it. But hopefully by the end of this week, we will have more news. Now, in our final segment, I want to talk about some other things going on around the campus. There was women's basketball game. There's hockey in the World Junior Classic or Championships, and basketball has a big game this weekend against Georgia Tech, a game they should win, and they really cannot afford to lose. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantees, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Are you going to the BC basketball games coming up? If you're looking for good tickets, go into Gametime. You can get them cheap. You can find out where you're going to sit and get yourself there easily. So see the view from your seat before you buy. You know exactly what you're going to get, and they have flash deals too. Right? And I was loving this with the Patriots, because with the Patriots, people were not into going to those games. You could get discounted tickets, and they would tell you when they would drop, and that was great. So if I was interested in going to a game, I'd be like, oh man, it just dropped, X%. I'm going to go to that game. Now you can get in too. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED for $20 off. Download the Gametime today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. I hope you guys are all having a happy new year. And for all our everydayers, I want to thank you for making Locked On BC your first listen and for spreading the word of Locked On BC, the only podcast that does this 5 days a week. So hit that subscribe button, like us wherever you get your podcasts, and thank you for doing that. Now, let's give a quick preview of this weekend. BC basketball is heading to Atlanta right now, along with Beacon Street Hoops, who we had on a couple days ago, to check out the game between Boston College and Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech is 17th on KenPom ratings. They're 8-5. They just lost to Florida State, who is a terrible team, but they're dangerous because they're a young team under Damon Stoudemire. They're up and down. They have a lot of bad losses, but they also have some really good wins. I mean, they beat Duke, who's a very good team, and they also beat Mississippi State, who's a very good team. So this is a game, though, that BC has to win. After losing this week to why am I blanking? Who the heck? Wake Forest. Why am my brain is mush? Sorry, Wake Forest, and to NC State, who looked awful against Notre Dame, but still won like 54-52 when their big load of a center hit a jumper with like 0.1 seconds left. But you got to get some wins going. And Georgia Tech is a team that you have to beat. If they do not win this game, things could get ugly. There's pressure that you have to win this game. When you got a guy like Quentin Post and you have players like Claudel Harris who can support him, there's no reason that you should not walk away with a big win over this team. I don't care if it's on the road or not. You gotta go out there and win. You have other wins on your schedule. You have 2 games against Notre Dame, 2 games against Florida State, 2 games with Louisville. But you got to win other games too. A Georgia Tech win, all of a sudden you're back in the right direction. This is a big game for them. They got to win it. Hockey has been dead for a while. It's been quiet because they've been off. But the hockey team themselves is not. Some of the players have all been busy playing in the World Junior Tournament. And BC has a ton of players out there, including Cutter Gauthier, who hit the game-winning goal today against Sweden. And they have what I've seen a lot on Twitter called the BC line, which is Gauthier, Smith, Will Smith, and Gabe Peralt, who have been dominant for this tournament. Now, heading into this game, Peralt had 6 points, Smith had 5, and Ryan Leonard was also out there. He had 5 points. And you had your goalie out there. So there was a ton of BC pride in this game. Excuse me. And they obviously when you have Gauthier hit the winner, this is a big deal. Nice game for BC. Nice win for the Eagles. And then finally, let's talk about women's basketball. After losing their season ACC opener to Tiana Mayer, who had 21 points in Duke, you guys want to talk about BC losing people in the portal. Look at that team. They go out there and they beat a 10-2 Miami team tonight, winning by, I think it was 6 points. Good win for Joanna McNamee. They're 8-6. I don't feel like they're going to go very far this year, but I think the big question will be at the end of the year, they're just going to lose all their talent again, because it seems like every year they seem to make a step forward by the end and then lose everybody. But they're 8-6, a good win for them. And that's how we're going to wrap up. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday, hopefully with some transfer portal news. We'll talk about the basketball game and everything in between. Thank you all. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Get on to Eagle Insider right now. Mitch has game film recaps. We have Beacon Street Ball doing basketball stuff. I got transfer portal news. The community there is amazing. If you like talking in the comment section here, check it out there. There's the community posts are awesome. Check that out, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you all for making Locked On your first listen. This is AJ Black. Thank you for listening to Locked On BC, your team every day.